Hi. So today we're going to play Big Bang Baby by the Stone Temple Pilots. I really like the Stone Temple Pilots. I really loved Scott Weiland, and I've been thinking about him kind of a lot over the holiday season because he did a really great Christmas album. And I really love listening to it. So I've been listening to a lot of him over the holidays. And it reminded me of this song. And this is my favorite Stone Temple Pilots song. So I actually loved this music video because it was really simple, but every time I hear this song, I can see him dancing in those green pants with that absurd bulge. I wore a one piece today. Usually, if I wear one of those, I get a camel toe, which could have been more of an homage to the actual Big Bang Baby music video. However, I've lost weight since I bought this outfit a couple years ago, so no toe today. This song only has four chords in it. It's pretty easy. It's a simplified version. There was a harder tab that looked like it would be more accurate to the song. It just was above my skill level. And I'm going to try this in stereo piano and see how it sounds. I think it'll be fine, but if not, I'm going to switch it to grand. This song just also seems really appropriate as the world is kind of falling apart, because it just reminds me of the Big Bang and creation, and now we're at the start of the year. Come along for the ride. Scott Weiland's voice is just one of my all-time favorites. It could be as classic as it was grunge. That's part of why I love his Christmas music so much. It's a very Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin kind of sound to me. And one of the music videos actually reminds me of the movie It's a Wonderful Life, like just a classic old school era kind of vibe, which I really love as well. I also think he would have made an excellent Frankenfurter in a Rocky Horror remake. And I love when artists have versatility like that. I know I can sound kind of lame when I speak on my love of older music. I do really love going back and listening to music from older eras though, because they seem to take on new meaning in present day. As much as I always loved this song because it was fun and catchy, and the video had him dancing around in those pants like it was a rock ballet, I honestly thought it was just one of those moody poet, overly artsy, and generally more abstract and less coherent. Many entertainers, though I would say it's most on display with musicians, like Scott Weiland, have always seemed like tortured souls to me. DMX, Whitney Houston, Chester Bennington, Chris Cornell, the entire 27 Club, Avicii, Left Eye, Michael Jackson. I'm not saying that's all of them, but if you look at an era like the 90s, it's a significant portion. And not that it's uncommon today, I think it just looks different. A lot of really excellent art comes from really broken people or shit experiences. It's a great way to channel emotions in a healthy way, and they can have some of the most eloquently put, beautiful perspectives on some really ugly things. Grief is a very powerful vibration, but it's on the lower end of the vibrational spectrum, which is why I find songs like Ariana's Thank You Next or Dua Lipa's Happy For You so refreshing, because I think they're great representations. Does anybody know how the story really goes? How the story really goes? Do we all just hum along? Of transmuting grief into something positive, and are more empowering and about moving on and personal growth and reflection, which are a higher vibration than broodiness and wallowing. They're dual aspects of grief, but the contrast is really good about how it can be used one way or another. It's just a matter of what you attune to. But some of the reason why I say I see a lot of broken people, particularly in musicians, is because of how things kind of play out when they become big. The battle between creative integrity, maintaining personal health, and being able to live comfortably. The evolution of how those decisions play out, and the savagery of media pushing narratives, and the extremes of both fans and haters are on display for all to see. The duality of fame. This song also references something that's been long speculated to run the entertainment industry, as reflected in the line, "Sell your soul and sign an autograph." I always thought that line was central to the song, but I never realized how significant that particular line in this particular song from this particular band would be until looking at it from a fresh perspective that only could have come when the unbelievable became more believable. What if it's deeper than just money, fame, and power, and there's a larger purpose behind it? Like maybe for the ability to access stone cutting tech, probably what was used to build things like pyramids. Purely just a tinfoil hairkerchief theory, and I'm of sound mind and not a danger to myself and others, just for the record. Look, there's long been speculation about who really runs shit behind the scenes of the world and things that happen to people who talk about it. The corralling or extinguishing of the brightest lights, particularly when they start fighting for more autonomy by those who control the power. There have also been speculations over the kinds of things that are done to attain certain levels of power or exclusive invites. I'm just on borrowed time and figured out I was headed to the rotisserie. For a long time, it seemed like the only ones at risk were non-compliant entertainers or people who knew too much. But what if there were a couple things we haven't considered? What if they did do similarly stifling things for regular people who may display some sort of exceptionality? What if they could do it by telling you not to believe in things that were actually real or make you believe in things that aren't? Although I've come to believe there's more validity to the simulation theory conspiracy than I originally thought, I do think the root purpose behind the simulation is spiritual. In this song, there's the line, "Does anybody know how the story really goes, or do we all just hum along?" I think this is really pertinent here, and I interpret it in multiple ways. For example, in my situation, the whole thing got to the point it has because no one actually knew how the story really went and all just hummed along with their torches and pitchforks. Very reflective over the confusion, mob mentality, and automatic presumptions of guilt in our society from increased cancel culture amid fastly fleeting trends. No one ever really does seem to know how the story really goes these days, because if you ask questions, you seem to only get the least cancelable answer, which is usually not the truth, or is a deflected version of the truth. Most people just seem intent on keeping deniability plausible to avoid potential cancellation. I personally think this is a large part of why genuine trust seems to be difficult to build, which makes it near impossible to build authentic, long-lasting connections. But as far as the line goes, you could also look at it from a different perspective. What if there's a biblical element to it? After the Tower of Babel, people and knowledge were dispersed. What if different religions and cultural beliefs all have some piece of that? Getting stuck on one note every time because there's 3 E's in a row, and it's getting caught on the second E of the second set in the first verse, and then it's screwing me up for the whole course. But none of us have the complete version. We all seem to think our story is right, but what if they're different chapters of a bigger book of creation? I know I get a lot of flack for this, but I do think there are a lot of overlapping components in many belief systems with slightly different twists or variations depending on how the dispersed sects evolved over time, and also just like geographics and things that have happened through history. Where would you find a highly diverse group of powerful people? Before I get into the rest of this, I just want to recap some of what I covered in the previous episode for some context in case you haven't seen it.
One of the reasons I started talking about the importance of spiritual and energetic protection more in 2025 was because between March and August, there were an increasing number of instances where I was spiritually attacked through the night. It wasn't just usual nightmares, I could feel the energetic escalation, and there were commonalities within the different instances that made this all that more significant. It would always be on certain moon phases or dates of astrological significance, and usually between 3 and 4 a.m. I'd usually spend the next few days ill. It got even weirder when random people started checking in to see how ill I was, though there wouldn't have been reason for them to know I even was, but this kind of makes sense within the demographics of the situation.
There was a time between April and May that seemed to coincide with another time frame of importance and maybe a retreat that I was not present at. I was legitimately sicker than I've ever been in my life for about a month. From that point on, it felt like I was getting hit with spiritual attacks regularly, though they seemed to do less damage to me with the increase in my energetic boundary and my work to maintain my spiritual alignment, which I had already been working on, but now seemed more of a necessity to be able to maintain my overall health. Now, keep in mind, this all makes different levels of sense to different people depending on what you believe.
Not everyone is always under heavy spiritual attack, some things are just karma. Not all energies or practitioners are bad or operate in a dark or low vibration, but you'll find a higher concentration of those within certain areas. But if a hot spot pops up or a portal tears open, the best line of defense is a solid energetic boundary fortified by spiritual alignment.
I've found that the strongest spiritual attacks generally involve the most people, due to the level of energy required to be able to harness that kind of strength. The bigger the portal, the lower the vibration, the more demonic shit can get through, especially if you're already in a location of spiritual significance or during a time of astrological significance. Unless you were planning to fuck around and get haunted, but that shouldn't be something you're aspiring to. That's not good. If that happens, wherever that portal is can very quickly turn into some Invasion of the Body Snatchers type shit, if Invasion of the Body Snatchers was on a Hellmouth. But I personally think that increasing spiritual protection can help safeguard against being body snatched, if that makes sense. It's just as hard to explain as I'm sure it is to understand until you wake up one day feeling like you're in zombie land. Everyone looks okay, but the level of depravity gets more and more unhinged by the day, and no one else really seems to think it's a problem. I'm only making this correlation because level of energetic and spiritual protection really has seemed to be the difference maker in my situation. God also helps. True faith in God, not just performative stuff, which I do understand may be a little bit ironic coming from me because of my amalgamation of beliefs that deviate slightly from tradition. At least tradition as we know it, but you never know. It could be something older than that. Practitioners with the knowledge, skill, and power to send a strong spiritual attack are more likely to do so during times of astrological significance. This is when I personally feel most under attack, and that's what I love about Return to Senders. It's not an attack, it's defense only. But it operates with the same level of force that's being sent at it. That goes back to the original sender. It's essentially karma in energetic form. I know that body snatching and zombies don't sound like assessments based in reality. I get it. At first glance, swap it with demons and it's called possession. Transferable concept, different name. Also, like I mentioned in the last episode, there are varying levels of possession as well, so it doesn't always look like something as extreme as you'd see in the movies. My making those correlations largely stems from multiple spiritual attacks I've had to defend myself against in 2025 specifically. It's felt a lot like living in an alt reality where everything is contradictory to what it once was, and absolutely nothing makes sense when compared to how I feel we were once taught to understand the world. Does anybody know how the story really goes? How the story really goes? Do we all just hum along? Sell your soul and sign an autograph. Big bang, baby, it's a crash, crash, crash. I wanna cry, but I gotta laugh. The weird part is when I ask questions, everything around me seems to turn into an elaborate production of gaslighting, where my life feels contrived and corralled by frustrated handlers. So there were a couple instances in 2025 where I felt truly under spiritual attack to the point where my life was in jeopardy, which again is a large part about why I think spiritual self-defense is so important. I think so. I think it's typically perceived as more occult than it really is or needs to be. But I find my spiritual alignment has just been a bunch of small choices of doing the right thing and trying to be a good person. So it doesn't take rituals and harnessing a bunch of energy because it's just daily maintenance. And I would say very fundamentally, my guideline is the 10 Commandments and treating others how you want to be treated, and what you put out into the world you will get back. So try to be a good person. Keep the heart light. I'm always focused on being a better, more spiritually aligned version of myself, because if you do that and you show respect to the spirit world, then you will be better supported. And even if an attack is sent your way, those spirits may choose not to do anything to you. And if you're being regularly spiritually attacked by the same people, summoning the same energies, but you're in spiritual alignment and those energies keep choosing not to hurt you, in the 5D, it's going to work more in your favor, especially if you're respectful of that energy when it comes to you. but it is something that you do need to be careful with, especially if it's not something that you have a lot of experience with. The thing I love about the spirit world is it's uncorruptible. You can be rich in spirit and not have a lot of money, or vice versa. But vibrational alignment toward higher vibrational energies, such as love, helps enrich the spirit. And you know what the coolest thing about that is? It's the literal power of love. And I say over there, but it's not really. Just like a different layer, so to speak. So I'm having a really hard time with this tab, which seems to be the case with most songs I'm trying to play these days. It is stopping partway through the first verse and it keeps not registering one specific note, which is really ridiculous because it's three of the same note in a row and it's not registering the second of the three, so it's getting stuck. It's fairly easy progressions, so I can keep on with the progressions really well, but I kind of have to stop and move the tab just to make sure I know where I'm at because I keep getting stuck in that first half of the song. I know I'm playing the right chords in the second half of the song, but I'm not sure if I'm hitting them right on beat. So I'm a little frustrated. Now we're back. I've restarted my computer. I'm hoping that this tab is going to work. So we're just going to keep rocking with this and come along for the ride. Wanna cry, but I gotta laugh. Does anybody know how the story really goes? How the story really goes? Or do we all just hum along? It's an energetic exchange, and the type of energy you put out into the world, you will get back. I like to say God and karma see all, and they see true intentions. Before I get into the rest of this, I'll reiterate that I very much respect and abide by spiritual law. I feel like I have a good connection with God, my ancestors. I have very strong spiritual boundaries and don't allow my energy to go where it's not called or welcome, and is designed to filter out lower vibrational energies, attachments, and any sort of spiritual attack. I don't ask any energies to do anything on my behalf, just for enough guidance and wisdom to help me along my path, and safe travels along the way. But like God operates in the same realm. So a similar concept applies, and you read about it in the Bible. People get frustrated with faith and religion because they ask God for things and he doesn't answer. And I say that because that was a large part of what drove me away for a long time. When I started asking more for guidance and wisdom and strength to make it through the challenges that I'd have to go through, that's when I found he showed up more. And then that reminded me that's what faith is. It's just believing. But like I said, it's an energetic give and take. So it's not about asking and just expecting, but it's trying to take the shortcuts that end up being the hindrance. I don't go peering into other people's energies, but if there's a strong connection or my energy is being called towards that, especially if there's, say, like a large group of practitioners doing some sort of ritual, I can often feel aspects of what's going on within that. I'd really appreciate not being the price of admission, which is why filters are important to maintain respectful energetic boundaries. Also, strong connections can be good or bad. It's just the strength of the force that's pulling on your energy at whatever level of vibration it's coming to you in. So the better discernment you have, the better you'll be able to recognize what type of energy it is when it comes towards you. That's actually another reason why I developed such strong spiritual boundaries. When there are a lot of people trying to get into your energy, especially if you do something like talk about energetic protection and thin veil perception online, and people want to constantly test your authenticity, that's a significant drain on your energetic field. Even if I wanted to be an intentional energy lurk, I don't have capacity with all the time I spend having to defend myself from incoming spiritual attack. But to me, I treat the 5D as sacred space. It's not a boundary I would intentionally cross to someone else unless I understood there to be some level of reciprocal connection. Increasing my spiritual protection has helped me better filter and also requires more energy from the sender of spiritual attacks to be able to go undetected or infiltrate my energetic field. Although I had felt like I had been getting hit with lower level spiritual attacks for most of the year, there were a couple instances where my spiritual protection is probably the only reason why I survived at all. Two of those instances were consecutive days during what's known as the Lionsgate portal, that there seemed to be only one energy who could get through, and everyone else seemed to be trying to use that energy as a cloak to get in as well. For the most part, I thought I was just fantasizing in some cases or having really great dreams in others. It was super refreshing because I've always had night terrors. I always said I'd never feel rested because it felt like I'd spend all night in another dimension's battle. So this energy, I know it all sounds kind of crazy, but when it'd be present, I wouldn't wake up with my 120-pound dog laying on my head like he'd been trying to shield me from something, but he would be acting like a big jealous boy. Here's the thing, given the situation, I get how it would sound like a delusional obsession, and although I've been called intense over the years, I've always gone by energy. So intensity generally comes from me having no interest until I have interest. That doesn't mean that I don't erroneously assume that when I feel things, other people feel the same. Some of that probably could be said about this situation as well, but again, no one else could get into my energy, which is also significant given the amount of energetic protection I've established, especially through the attacks that I've faced. I also find it significant that that energy became required to access mine. Between that and given when I perceived all of this to start, I understood that to mean that there was something important about that specific connection. And that energy had been able to come and go from mine without issue when themselves until the first instance on that Lionsgate, where it felt like I was pulled out of my body into a full force collision, then slammed me back into my body. The next day, still within that time frame, in my mind I was just getting it from behind, but looked up and all of a sudden there was a mirror like I could watch, and eye contact is a bit of a kink for me. Except the two most basic things about being in a dream state and encountering other people are don't make eye contact and don't die. I kept trying to turn my head and not look in the mirror, but there was a big blue hand that looked like it was outlined in glow sticks that was choking me out. And it kept trying to make me look in the mirror. Every time we made eye contact, it was like his eyes were windows and I would see flames in them and they were starting to get bigger. And when I'd managed to turn my head away, they'd fizzle out, but they'd get bigger again when the hand had my neck. I kept trying to yell to look away, but couldn't, and struggled to fight off this hand while I was forced to watch the energy I was connected to melt and scream. It was pretty horrifying at the time because from my perspective, I didn't think I saved him in time. But at least he made it back to this realm from whatever one he was sucked into, and that's what's important. I don't know how I got out of the headlock. I just remember feeling like being grabbed and thrown, and I woke up standing in the middle of my living room 10 feet from where I had laid down to have my self-love moment. Everything's been absolutely chaotic and weird since then, and although agreed that there was a connection, what happened on our respective sides of reality were different, as were our levels of knowledge and understanding about what and how that even all happened. But that's about the time I started talking about spiritual protection, and like also because I understood that people were trying to get into my energy, I felt that it was the most ethical thing to do to let people know that I have a return to sender in place. It's not every day that you almost get legitimately choked out just trying to touch yourself, especially when you live alone. But this whole ordeal kind of made everything seem serendipitous. But I also had a different understanding of the original situation and how we were originally connected. I never said I'm never wrong. I wanted to believe in it for sure. And it was easy to when it became clear that we both saw something. I didn't necessarily take into consideration we didn't exactly see the same thing, have the same experiences or the intentions, But a lot of that was my misunderstanding too. I'm only going to mention this part because apparently every random memory I have from when I was a kid all appear to be extremely relevant now. It wasn't like I saw a guy and was like, oh my god, he's the man of my dreams. More like the one from my dreams. One I drew a picture of when I was a kid and said, that's the one. I was like 8. I've been looking for that guy my whole life. So yeah, I got hook, line, and sinkered. In 2 dimensions. How embarrassing. To be fair, I had the name wrong. I had written Sheldon. Just out here looking like a Big Bang Tinfoil Hairkerchief Theory, baby. Okay, so even though Ultimate Guitar crashed constantly through that whole thing, and I could not get a full run through without it freezing, and I couldn't get a full run through with it working properly at all. So I did rely pretty heavily on the sheet once I kind of learned where the notes actually fell within the song. So I did have a lot of fun playing it, even though I was frustrated while I was playing it. But it was pretty easy. I would like to try it again with the other tab with more chords to it. I'm kind of interested. I actually thought that this was kind of fast in some cases, and that one had a lot more. It didn't really specify if you needed to how it was to be played. So I'm not sure how you would get that. I don't comprehend how you could move that fast, but I'm sure someone with more experience that can actually play would be a lot better at it. But I had a lot of fun playing this. I'm really excited that I got to play a Stone Temple Pilots song, and that's my tribute to Scott Weiland because I definitely miss him. He's one of my favorite voices that there was. So thanks for thanks for coming along with me. So I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for coming along with me, and until next time, keep the peace and keep rocking on.